Hey, welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, Cellarcast, episode 80, oh god, I actually have to check this time, 85, okay, 85. I've been really good, that's the first time I've had to double check in a while, I'm pretty sure. Apologies if my voice sounds a little funky, or if I sneeze during this or something like that. I spent the weekend at Kat's place, and she must have some kind of like poltergeist, some kind of like dust mite poltergeist in her home, because my sinuses got messed up. They got like thrashed. I don't know if that's what like a sinus infection is like. It only lasted like a day pretty much, but oh boy, when I left, I just like irritation of my irritation in the sinuses, just super oversensitive in, what are the sneeze hairs called? With that area, like that area that triggered, that like, automatically just gets set off when any like particles get up there by like the hairs up in your nostril, just way oversensitive, constant, just like gross warning. Just snot, just like clear, like no sickness, right? Just like runny nose, constant, just like stick a tissue in my nose and just kind of leave it there for a while, kind of thing. Oh boy, that was not fun to do a whole bus ride of that, but I got a little bit of allergy medication, and that kind of like let me sleep. I'm mostly clear now, but I still feel like a little bit of just the lingering effects. No idea what that was. But we had the window closed for a couple hours. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know exactly. I don't know how exactly, like, if that's gonna really show in my voice, or if I always sound like this. I went like a couple days without talking to anyone or like really using my voice. So before I left, so I noticed that like I talked to someone, I was like, oh, my voice sounds like rough. It sounds like not even like grimy or something. Just like kind of like no tone, no real like texture, nothing. My voice just sounded super flat and weird and groggy for like 2 days. Now I believe I've worked my way out of that, so I'm ready to deliver you guys a podcast. I kind of spent most of today just sort of recovering, because God, being at her house is so exhausting. I have to talk to her and like be social and tell her I love her. God, it's so, oh my God. So, no comments, no questions from last time. So I don't think I really had anything else I wanted to talk about. It's mostly just gonna actually be about what we did together. Which was, we watched a bunch of shit. We watched a bunch of stuff over the weekend. 'Cause Kat's a watcher. And I'm a gamer. She's gaming though. She's gaming. She doesn't have a machine that can run Hi-Fi Rush. So hey, somebody recommended that. Ryan recommended that in the comments. It looks good. It actually reminded me, funny enough, of like a CG, or like maybe a like really stylized like Flash cartoon that would be on Disney XD that would like get canceled after one season. Because of low ratings and they couldn't sell toys. It had that kind of vibe to it, so I recommended it to Kat. And she really wanted it, but she doesn't have a machine that can run it right now. Maybe it'll be Xbox exclusive, but it would be cool if it came to Switch, I guess, just so she could play it. She was all bummed out. We were looking at like the minimum specs, and she's like just not there on her laptop. Yeah, so that was a bummer, but hey, the game does look cool. And there was kind of like a sort of interesting discussion about it around like, because someone said like, it's 6 hours long, which apparently like isn't even really true. It's like, like a 8-10 hour game. It's like, all right. And I'm pretty sure, isn't it like a character action game? Like, those games are like super replayable. Like, it's kind of maybe better if it's on the shorter side, if you're going to be replaying it a bunch. And there was kind of, I don't know, sort of an interesting question, because sometimes it's, to me, it's like, I made a comment about this like in the Urban Yeti video, where I was like, they sold this for $30. And like, there's definitely a critique of that kind of a mindset that I understand it, and I actually agree with to an extent, which is that like, if you're looking at something as like a work, right, a work of art, let's say, the price point shouldn't like, it doesn't really factor it, like, it doesn't make it worse, right? It doesn't make the game worse. It's kind of an external thing, right? It's kind of like an external factor that doesn't really, it's not part of the game. It doesn't have anything to do with the design. None of the qualities you would usually associate with the quality. Did I say qualities you'd associate with the quality? But there is like a sting, right? There is like a part of you that's like, I feel like for the amount of money I'm paying, I should be getting a little more out of this. I think it's just that like, it's like the value, it's like the dollar value to time value thing, right? Like, you could probably spend $300 on an experience that lasts, 20 minutes. Let's say. How long does skydiving last? Maybe like a couple minutes in total, like the actual diving part. I'm assuming it's fairly expensive for being that short, but it's skydiving. It's a whole experience that you're packing in. That it's like it's a quality versus length, I guess, argument. And there's games that I can say like are not very long, but like I wouldn't mind paying most, like maybe like half price. I was gonna say full price, and then I was like because the one I always go to is Journey in my mind, because I really loved Journey when I played it as a kid. I got that as part of a bundle of 3 games by that game company. It was that, Flower, and some other game that was like aquatic, that I was like, it's kind of whatever. But I like Journey and I really like Flower, and for being like, and for like $30 or something, that was pretty great. If that was like $40, I'd be like, okay. If that was like $60, it's right. It has to be really good, or very like replayable or something like that. The replayability has to be high end quality. There's like a lot of factors, I feel, and it depends, based on who you are, right? Like what you're looking for out of a game. I generally don't mind price. Well, I usually just buy stuff on sale because I don't have a ton of spending money. $60 is like an entire paycheck for me. So, Patreon. So like, I usually just buy stuff on sale. Like I'll buy stuff at like $10, $15 max. So I don't know if I'm the best one to really say like, oh yeah, you shouldn't put more money or put more of a value on what games. What am I trying to say? You shouldn't. I'm probably not the one to say like, oh no, it's fine. You could pay $60 for that when I'm just buying everything on sale. So yeah, I don't have much of an answer to the discussion. I guess what I would say is that like, I think that there is realistically like an expectation that like, yeah, art is cool and all, but like at the end of the day, you're asking for my money. And if I don't feel like I've gotten my money's worth out of what you're offering me, yeah, maybe I can take an issue with that. And it's also an issue that only exists for as long as the game has that price point. I mean, that's like why it's difficult to critique games like based on their price point, because it fluctuates. It'll go on sale. I mean, oh god, someone was bringing up examples. I remember this even before this whole Hi-Fi Rush discussion. Someone was bringing up examples of like games that were criticized for their price points at the time they were released, and now at like, $20, $30, no one really. It's not it's like a moot point pretty much. And I don't know. It's like, I guess the ultimate question is like, is it fair to critique a game based on its price point? And I think that from one perspective, yes. And I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but I kind of look at game reviews in one of two ways, like one of two lenses I see, or two different intentions for a review. So when I see like people criticize some IGN reviews, I think are bad, right? I'm very wary of jumping onto the bandwagon of critiquing or criticizing or ripping into game journalists, because I think we tend to. You only really hear about bad reviews. Like, the negativity bias, I think, kicks in pretty hard on stuff like that. Like, you only hear, of course, there's going to be bad reviews. There was a bewildering review for Hogwarts Legacy, like, today, or yesterday, whenever it came out. That was, like, it spends the whole review talking about, like, how, like, it has performance issues. The gameplay gets pretty repetitive. It's clearly just missing things. It's just kind of meh. And then it gives it a 9 out of 10 at the very end, and it's like, huh? Though the story makes no sense. I think the villains are the goblins, which is awesome. The villain... Come, young wizard, we will defeat the Jews together. Yeah! The true enemy. The goblins. Throwback to that time in Harry Potter when the Goblin Bank in the movie had the Star of David on the floor. What a classic. Oh, that would be so funny if I wrote like a kid's book. If I wrote like a kid's book and I got adapted into a movie, I would totally be advising and be like, try to work as much, try to work like as much like fucking dog whistle shit into it as possible. Put the star, put like a, well, in goblin, in the goblin culture of my world, they use this, they prefer stars with 6 points. I put like everything, just like see how much I could get as a little prank. That's so funny. Oh, you know what you gotta do? Oh my god. Have like the most have like the content of the story be like the most progressive stuff ever. It's exemplary of the way that society should treat each other, and acceptance and tolerance. And then when it gets the adaptation, just in like all the set dressing and fucking costumes, just the worst, just the most insensitive shit. Just to really confuse everyone. I don't know why this is so funny to me. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so like an IGN review. Oh god, my earbuds are falling all over the place. So like, I cut some slack. I look at IGN reviews, and like I use that as like a blanket term, right? Like a mainstream games journalism or review, game publication review. I look at that and I think like this is a review that's meant for a consumer audience. It's a review for the consumer. It's reviewing the game as a product and not necessarily a work of art. Of course, I like its nature of what it is. I think you do have to analyze it on some artistic level. I think you have to do that because it is a piece of art. How good is the art? But it's also I think it's important because like the analytical reviews, I guess I'll call them, the 1 hour breakdowns of the game's mechanics and systems and designs and art direction and the script and everything that someone's going to post on YouTube, that'll come later. Some dork is going to do that, like me, is going to do that in their room, and that will exist. But when the game comes out and I'm a consumer, I want to know, is this game worth my money? Because you can be like, oh, it's art, but like also I'm spending $60 on it, or now $70. It's like, okay, well, is this worth $70? Right? Like, I think like an analytical, from like one of the big differences is that I'll say like reviews, a consumer review, I'll call that, and versus an analytical review. Those are going to be my working terms right now. Like a consumer review is meant for the moment. An analytical review is like whenever, right? It's in the future. It's in retrospect. It's not like pressing, and it's also like, I think that if you're going to be honest about like analyzing it as like a piece of art, I don't think price should factor into that because it's not really like a part of the game. It's kind of set by like, yeah, the publisher can set it in some situations, but it's kind of, it's an external thing in my mind. And what am I trying to say? I'm still in my like warm-up phase, warming up my brain. So like, I don't think it belongs there, but for someone like a mainstream games journalism publication, that's doing a consumer review, a consumer-focused review, they want to know about that. And like, okay, is like parts of it are like, is it fair to critique a game as a work of art based off of its like the bugs that are in the game? Yeah, sort of. Yeah, definitely. I think it's more important in a review that's like consumer focused, because it's like, okay, what do I need to know as a consumer? Okay, is this game worth my time? Like, does it have money? Does it have time put into it? Does it work? Does it crash? Is there like content in the game? Is the content good, right? And then you can start talking about it as like a piece of art. But before that, there's like a couple things you got to get through. Like, there's a reason that excuse me, jeez, I ate like 2 hours ago. I don't know why I'm burping now. There's if you've only ever watched movies like in theaters, like I'll say regular movies, maybe it's like not apparent, but if you just go watch someone's indie film that sucks, like something they'd watch on like Best of the Worst, like Red Letter Media, where like the shots aren't in focus, the sound, there's like no mics, there's like background buzzing, the editing is like nonsense, the acting, it's like these are not actors. Like, okay, well, would you pay $10 to go watch that? $15, $13 to go watch that? I think it was the last ticket I bought. No, there's like a standard of quality that people expect in movies. I think you should have that in a game as well. And I think that's like what a consumer report, isn't that a magazine? That's what like a consumer review is aiming for. That's what it's trying to cover. That's the basis it's trying to cover. And you don't have to worry about that with an analytical review. Like it doesn't matter. Like, okay, what is it giving me? Like, what's in the game? What's the mechanics? What's going on? What are the characters? How good is it? Does it work together? Is it cohesive? That's like more the realm of that second category. So I think it's fair. I think it's fair for someone to say that they don't want to spend their money on like a 2-hour experience. That's okay. That's just okay. And if they don't want to spend like, $70, $60 on it, I think that's fine. I don't know if you can say like overpriced, but I don't know that that's like a knock against the game itself, right? It's a knock against the price point. Yeah, I think you can separate criticizing the price point from criticizing the game. No, what I was thinking of earlier, it wasn't games that had gone down in price. It was games that were like buggy on release. And that's kind of like a weird problem with sites like Metacritic, is that Metacritic never updates its scores. Not the like professional reviews for any of its games. Like once those are out, they're out pretty much. They don't really do reissues as far as I'm aware. So there's games that launched and they were not in a good state and they were rightfully criticized. If a game is fucked up and buggy, they should be criticized for that. It should not. I think that it's fair for it to review poorly, because it actually does. Like, let's be honest, reviews don't matter to companies. Sales do. If the publisher sees that they're being punished for their management style. Now, video game publishers are full of some very dense people, so it might take a long time for the message to get through, if it ever does. But if they see that they're actually being hurt by releasing projects way too early, crunching their staff, just prioritizing speed, yearly releases, these things, over, at least, prioritizing that kind of shit too much, that's... like, I think it's fair for a game to sell poorly because of that. And I think that games journalists should be consumer advocates in that respect. I think they should tell the audience that, hey, this game's buggy and they are asking $70 for an unfinished piece of shit that they rushed out. And if you don't want to support that, like, buying it says that it's okay, pretty much. Buying that and supporting that tells them that that's fine and they can get away with that. Telling the publisher. I remember like when the Blizzard thing happened and there was like all this boycott Blizzard stuff that didn't go anywhere because people forgot about it. There was like a really funny exchange I saw that I really agree with the responding party. So someone says that, like, hey, well, there's good people working at Blizzard, right? There's good people who are, like, good developers, and they didn't do any of that stuff. And someone responded with, it's not my job to pay the staff. It's the company's job. I don't think it's fair for a company to hold an audience ransom to basically be holding. No, it's more like they're holding their staff hostage and bargaining like ransom with the consumer base to pay the staff. Does that make sense? I don't think that's a fair situation. And I don't like giving a corporation that much power over my body. Like, but if I don't give Activision money, then the developers are gonna be hungry. Like, no, fuck off. So then obviously what happens is they just shut down the studio and lay people off instead of changing anything or cutting their own salaries or something like that, because they're big pieces of shit. That's like a different thing. That's a different thing. What was I talking about? I guess I just kind of just defeated my own argument about how like, but you shouldn't buy games that are release unfinished and broken. And it doesn't matter because it's not your obligation to pay the staff of a developer publisher. And then I said, but if you don't do that, then they aren't going to get the memo. But like, I don't know, man. I want to move on. Talk about this for like 20 minutes. So while I was over at Kat's house, she put on a bunch of stuff for us to watch. So here's a little list. We watched 60% of Spy Family, Spy X Family. Is it like Hunter x Hunter? Is it like Hunter x Hunter where the X is silent? I'll just say Spy Family. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Spy. I'm always late to the boat on all this stuff. So you're getting. Remember, I'm the least trendy person in the world, so I'm finally getting to Spy Family after like 6 months, and the manga's been going on even longer. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We watched the first cour, or was it qua? The first qua? The first part, the first 12 episodes. And then the next day we watched like the first 4 episodes of the next qua, up to the episode where, excuse me, it's the one where Yor learns how to cook the stew, and Kat wanted to watch that one because when I got to her house, she made the stew. She watched some videos about like what the recipe was, and she made the stew because she loves Yor, and she loves Spy Family, and she loves Yor, and she's like, let me make the stew that she makes in the show. So she made it, and it was delicious. She did a wonderful job on it. Thanks, baby. I took some home and I ate it, and it was really good afterwards when I got home. I guess for anyone who doesn't know, Spy Family is this weird kind of like, it's got this very anime thing going on where the tone is sort of all over the place, but it kind of ends up working. Anime just loves just shoving the stick shift around in what tone it has. So Spy Family kind of wildly swings between like really cute, fun, humorous slice of life stuff and like little girl has to stop a terrorist attack. But it generally works and I think it works because like the characters are likable enough and they're fun enough that you can put them in wildly different tones and it's still pretty entertaining. I guess I prefer the fun, lighthearted stuff a little more because it's like, I don't know, it's just pleasant, I guess. But like, hey, I kind of like it when they do a mixture. Because that's kind of the appeal of the show to me is the mixture of like kind of bright, happy, innocent stuff with like, this kind of serious stuff going on behind the scenes. If you don't know what Spy Family is, Spy Family is an anime and a manga that takes place in fictional Germany, Berlin Wall era Germany, where what do they call it? Ostonia and Westalis. Very clever. and they're in a like a basically a Cold War. They're engaged in a Cold War, and the main character Lloyd is this like spy for, I think, the East. I forget which one they're in. No, he's a spy for the West, but he's in the East, and his mission is there's like this guy that he has to like track down and stop, who's like the headmaster of this like super gifted, this like super posh gifted child school. And so Lloyd basically has to create a family and then enroll the daughter in the school, and then infiltrate and take down this guy. That's like the long-term goal of the series. So in order to do this, he just adopts like a random girl called Anya, who's this little pink little anime baby dog, and she's a little girl, and she can read minds, and she's psychic, and she's like 6, and she's very cute in that kind of like, I know this is pandering to me, of like, oh, it's a cute tiny little child, and she says words funny, and she's just really overly cute. But hey, I like cute things. Let me be happy. I don't mind. She makes funny faces. And then he has to like get because he ends up not enrolling her. Wait, does he? Oh, she passes the exam. She passes the exam to basically get an interview, and so he needs like a wife, and his wife, he ends up just finding this random woman who lives in the town named Yor, and she's a assassin. She's an assassin. And she's kind of like, Yor is this very amusing character to me. She's like this sort of ditzy kind of airhead type, but she also like loves killing people. And it's this kind of humorous, it would be really, I feel like it's one thing that would be really easy to mess up, but I really enjoy the way that she's written, where like she has this kind of like this kind of air to her, where she's always worried about kind of frivolous things, and she's just, oh my god, but then also she's like a super highly skilled killer, and it's kind of amusing. I feel like it would be really easy to write that character like very like, I don't know, cringy, like awkwardly and like trying too hard, but they're pretty low key about it. Like she's generally sort of most of the time, and then when things get serious or she perceives some kind of danger, she turns into like killer mode. And then she's still kind of the same person. She's just really good at killing people. And so I found that it's charming is what it is. So the sort of the humor of it, the situation, it's like a very bizarre sitcom almost, is that every single one of them has these kind of secrets. Lloyd is a spy, Anya is psychic, and Yor is a trained assassin who kills people in her off time, for money, I assume, or I don't know, something. They never actually really say that. Maybe she just for the love of the game. The love of the game. But none of them know their like individual secrets. So Anya, because she's psychic, she knows their secrets, but they don't say them openly, right? So Lloyd doesn't know that Anya's psychic or that Yor is an assassin. Yor does not know that Lloyd is a spy or that Anya's psychic. Anya knows both of their secrets, but they don't know hers. And so it's this kind of funny like setup where things are happening, and kind of like the main, usually a very common structure for an episode will be that they're going on some kind of excuse me, they have some kind of family thing happening, right? It's like a fake marriage, basically, and Yor and Lloyd are both aware of that. They both acknowledge it's technically a fake marriage. I think they like forge the forge because their last name is Forger. They forge like a marriage document, I think. But it's like a fake marriage, and they're aware of it. And she's in it because I think she kind of likes it. She likes sort of being like a wife and a mom, and she enjoys that. And also, she doesn't want to get McCarthy trialed. Because of the political unrest. Apparently, it's suspicious for a woman in her late 30s to be unmarried because she might be a spy. So it's being married makes it easier for her to not get arrested and also have a cover to do her assassinating. It'll kind of be like, so Lloyd acknowledges that, like, okay, he has to keep up, he has to preserve there's things that come up. His number one priority is the mission of getting to the headmaster, right? But he needs to do things that aren't like 100% like on target for that in order to like make it work, make the mission work. Like, oh, the neighbors are getting suspicious that we don't spend enough time together. They think it's weird, or that I'm like, oh, like he overhears them saying that, like they think he's cheating on her or something because he's always out late doing like side quests for his agency. He's like, fuck, we gotta go. Okay, we have to do like a family day at the aquarium, or we need to pass the we need to be believable as like a family during the interview. So let's actually do some bonding time. Let's have a little day on the town to get to kind of know each other and what we do, and have like an idea of what we do as a family. And then these situations happen, and then something will basically come in and subvert that, or kind of twist the situation. Either Lloyd gets a mission from his HQ that he has to do, and he's got to like balance the family day and the mission, or excuse me, some kind of like a mishap occurs, and one of them has to use their skills at something, like special talent that they're hiding from the others, to solve the problem, while keeping it a secret. And then it's generally pretty fun. I'm making it sound kind of formulaic, but honestly, when I think about it, most episodes are pretty different. They kind of jump around quite a bit as to like, okay, this one's sort of like, it's going one way, and then there's we know like that kind of structure I sort of mentioned. That's like kind of like the general idea of like how a lot of the plots go. There's some kind of an issue, and they have to use their talent without letting the others know. That's kind of like a very common sort of situation to arise in the show. But they'll mix up like, oh, this is like an Anya-focused thing where she's at school and she has to get close to the headmaster's kid. She has to become friends with him. So she's like trying these things, and then she has these little kind of mishaps in her school. How many Yor-centered episodes are there? Not too many. There's the one with her cooking. Not too many that I've seen, at least. A lot of them kind of end up being very Lloyd-focused, because he has kind of like... I guess that is like one thing that, at least from what I've seen of the show, which is a little over half of it, that I kind of wish they would show a little bit more of Yor, because she is a really likable character, and I feel like there's opportunities for her to do like kind of this. So what they do often with Lloyd is that kind of thing where it's like, oh, he has to use his spy skills or something like that to deal with this problem that's going on in the background, right? And that's played for laughs. Sometimes it's played for serious. but it's usually it's like that's kind of that's a lot of like what his character does, and like it makes sense that it's very focused on him, I guess, that he gets a lot of presence doing that kind of thing, because the thrust of the show is his mission. This wouldn't be happening if he wasn't, trying to advance this goal of like getting to the headmaster. But like, I wish that they would do a little more with Yor, at least in terms of like, Yor, they're like, would that be great? Like, they're on Anya's on a play date. Anya's on a play date, and Yor has to kill one of the other kid's parents or something like that. Wouldn't that be crazy? That might be a little too dark. I don't know. Like, that's maybe for like a different show. That's also kind of hard because like they treat the murder. That's the thing with the show, is that like it's not so dark or cynical that like murder is just like a funny thing. Not really. But so like they treat the murders with like gravity, and it's intent, and it has to be like that because it's supposed to, like, I think it's important that Yor has this kind of like dark side to her that you don't usually see until she goes beast mode. Like, and so like keeping sort of the importance and the seriousness of like killing someone in the show, I think like kind of has to be there to make her character stronger. But like, yeah, I think it kind of puts the writer in a difficult situation where they want, I almost wonder if like they want to write more things where Yor has to kill someone, and like have like an interesting like high stakes situation, but it's so serious and kind of dour, and it kind of like, well, if she doesn't succeed, it's like it's like there's not really like a way. Yeah, it like it would bring the mood down too much basically of the show, whereas like, oh, if Lloyd fails in his mission, it's sort of like wacky spy hijinks, right? And like the stakes are usually not that high, and when they are, it's usually played pretty straight. Like there's a whole episode, or 2 episodes I think, that are about like an actual like attempted terrorist like bomb attack that's going to cause like a war, and it's treated pretty seriously. And there's like some humorous stuff because like Anya ends up having to save the day and doing a bunch of stuff, but like it's generally treated pretty seriously with like, no, like a war is going to happen, like a real war with like misery and suffering and wanton death, and you like really don't want that. Like it's a really bad thing, and it's treated with like kind of the gravity that it should have. So it's like not really funny, but it is sort of funny to see Anya kind of like she doesn't know how to read a clock and stuff like that, and that's all just natural stuff with the character because she's sick. She doesn't know how to read a clock. She's like, oh, when the bell hits this time, it's gonna explode. What's the time? Like that's kind of funny, right? But that's like not like a gag. That's just like a natural part of the character. Like she would not know how a clock. When did I know how to read a clock? I think sometime around first grade, first grade, kindergarten, around that time, I think. So like, yeah, that's like. So if you're gonna have Yor like killing someone, it's like maybe like because it's not like the type of thing where like when Lloyd kind of messes with stuff to accomplish his spy mission, it'll be like, oh, he puts on a disguise, someone mistakes his identity, he has to kind of like inconvenience some, but like stuff that you can kind of play off for laughs. With yours, like a man is dead. His blood is on his head was cut clean off, and I'm like, I wish there was more your centered stuff. Most of the time when she uses her little assassin-y skills, it ends up being like, oh, she's like protecting Anya from someone, or something like that, or she's got to be super athletic or something. She's like teaching her how to throw a dodgeball, and she fucking like a fucking railgun from Quake. She throws it. But like, yeah, that's kind of like, it's not even like really a criticism. It's more just like, I wish that they kind of, I wish there, maybe there's a way, and maybe further on in the show, or in like a second season, because this shit's definitely getting a second season. Excuse me. There'll be like, material from the manga that kind of leans into that a little more. Maybe they figure out a way to incorporate Yor's kind of like night job, I guess, not her day job, her night job. Because it's implied that she's doing it fairly often, and she'll make references to it to kind of remind the audience that it's going on, and that, yes, she is still killing people. But we don't really get to see much of it. There's even, like, a reference, like, she comes home with, like, cuts on her hands, right? And it ends up being, like, something else, like a super innocuous thing. And you're like, oh, okay, oh, yeah, okay, no, yeah, she does murder people. Yeah, I think it would be weird because she has this whole like this person who calls her. She calls them like the shopkeeper, who like gives her assignments and things like that. And it would be weird to me from like a writer's perspective to write like a long manga or something that goes on for some decent amount of time where you have like a lot of space to hey, here's a little storyline for like 3-4 chapters about this thing, and like not delve into something like that. Like, there's like an overarching goal and a plot and everything, but like, it's really slice of lifey, right? Like, there's a lot of breathing room to just, hey, that storyline's done. We're done with the thing about this happening. Let's have a little your story. You can just kind of fit right in there. But yeah, overall, I've really enjoyed what I've seen of it. Probably next week we'll finish it. And then I expect it to pretty much keep up the quality. I'd be surprised if like in the last 8 episodes of the second part it takes a nosedive or something like that. But yeah, no, the characters are very charming. They're pretty likable. I like seeing them do stuff. It just kind of it's overall a fun show. And again, it has that weird tone thing where I almost wonder, like, could you watch this with like your kids? Maybe like preteens. I'm just imagining. I'm like, man, so many parts of this I feel like families would love, because it's a really family focused show. Like there was a whole joke about when this thing was getting popular, about how like it was like it was like a conspiracy by the Japanese government to make people starting families, like make people get married and have babies more. Like fix their birth rate. Because it's like such a nice little picture of a family, and like that's kind of fun. They have like a little it kind of reminds me of like what's that new game, I think, is that one about the girls who work at the at like a game development studio, and one of the criticisms of it was that it's not realistic to what it's actually like to work in a game studio, even in like it's just super casual, super slice of life and relaxed and kind of chill out kind of a vibe. And it's like when actual game development is often, and especially in Japan, is be like very stressful and hectic. And I think the author like literally came from game design, like game dev, and he was like, yeah, I know, I lived that. I don't want to fucking write about that. I was stressed enough doing it. I want to write about what I wish my job was. Just cute girls hanging out. Spy Family is like, I don't know, it reminds me of that. Like, would a real family have more problems? Maybe. But like, I just want to write a fun little story with a cute little family. Oh, they get a dog. Oh, I love this dog. Oh, he's a big fella. I love the big fellas. I love big fella characters, and this dog is a certified big fella. Just big fluffy dog. He goes bark, 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 bark. Oh, I love him. Big shaggy dog. I love that dog character. Yeah, Spy Family. It was good. I'm glad we watched it. I'm gonna pause real quick to use the bathroom. Whoa, I'm back, and it's like you didn't even know. Yeah, it's movie magic, baby. So the second thing that we watched was, oh my god, I totally forgot. I totally forgot what the actual second thing we watched is. Okay, actually, let me skip that. Let me go to the third thing first, because it dovetails here. The third thing we watched was Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon. The Shaun the Sheep movie that came out in... Oh god, was it? Was it actually... right. In late 2019/2020 worldwide. So, from what Kat told me, this was a movie that kind of got... This was the Shaun the Sheep movie. This is, I think, actually the second Shaun the Sheep movie. I think the first one came out like 2018, 2017, something like that. So Farmageddon came out in like 2020, and from what Kat tells me, so looking up the release date, it was February 14th, 2020. That's pretty rough, buddy. That was like the week COVID hit. Like, I remember it. I remember... Was it Labor Day? No, that's not when Labor Day happens. What am I talking about? Did it come out on Valentine's Day? It's so weird. It was like the week or the week before COVID hit. And this kind of got wiped away. There was a meme about like, oh hey, retweet this with a like a GIF or a picture of the movie, a movie that came out the year you graduated high school. And I just saw people retweeting that with movies that came out in their year they graduated, and I decided to go look up. I'm like, I didn't do it myself, but it made me think like, oh yeah, what came out? What did come out in 2020? Which was the year I graduated. And I looked it up, and I was looking down the list of 2020 movies, and I was like, wow, I don't remember a single one of these. I can't remember a single, like, let me actually, like, look these up. 2020 movies. Run, Greenland, The Empty Man, Midnight Sky, Greyhound, is that Tom Hanks? Songbird, The Secret Dare to Dream, Possessor. What are these? 365 Days, The Call, Pieces of a Woman, Voyagers. Did these happen? Are these real movies? Oh, Tenet. Tenet came out. I remember that. I legitimately don't know. That's the only one of these that I can remember. I'm looking through like all the... Oh, did the Monster Hunter movie come out in 2020? Criminy. Yeah, just New Mutants. Really? Oh, Disney Plus. I vaguely remember New Mutants. Yeah, so movies basically didn't exist in 2020. Honestly, like, so much pop culture got just, like, derailed. The pop culture machine just got derailed by COVID. I feel like culture just it was just on ice that whole year. So this movie was kind of a victim of that, and it's a shame, because Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon is great. It's an amazing movie. it was fucking fantastic. So it's interesting because Aardman has like a weird history with films. The one we watched right before this was Flushed Away, which was the movie that excuse me, which was it was like a co-production with DreamWorks from 2006. Yeah. It's like Flushed Away. I remember hearing people who like knowing people who really like Flushed Away, and we watched it, and compared to their other stuff, it's just it feels much more like a DreamWorks movie than an Aardman movie, and not really in a good way. I wouldn't call it terrible, it's just very fine. It's very, like, by the numbers, family CG animated movie. Fish out of water kind of story. It's just okay. The animation is mostly pretty. It mostly holds up. Thankfully, it's kind of it's a little bit reminiscent of. In my mind, I can at least say that it's sort of reminiscent of, the claymation. Not the most detailed models or textures or anything, so it works. It's fine. There's definitely like, oh god, they're in like they're in like in the house at one point, and they're in a room, and it looks like a tech demo room to like show off the new lighting engine kind of thing. But for the most part, it's okay. The most Aardman thing about it is that it's so funny. I think I mentioned this last week. Every character in an Aardman production looks British. Even here, where they're all rats, they look like British rats. I think it's the teeth. I don't know, man. These rats look British, dude. And going from, so like one of the things that I was like a little like that made it feel much less Aardman to me was that there's very few like sight gags and visual things and just clever little, I don't know, like literally just visual gags, which are in my mind, I realize now are really a hallmark of Aardman, even in, Wallace and Gromit that has dialogue and all that. A lot of the humor in like their animations comes from the movements of characters, funny little just visual jokes, just stuff like that. Maybe not. It's not necessarily like the humor doesn't necessarily come from the dialogue. And Flushed Away is like the jokes it does make are usually mostly through dialogue, and I thought that was weird. There is one genuinely really funny, clever bit, which is like, they got like the main villain. He's a frog guy, and he's communicating to them over like a cell phone. So what they do, it's like a video on a cell phone. So what they like a live video call. And they basically strap this flip phone to like another frog who's like a mime, because it's like a French frog. French frog. So the mime is like the mime is like making movements as the villain is speaking, and like trying to like making little like gestures and flourishes as he's speaking, and like there's a point where like he turns around and the villain has to like tell like, no, turn back around. And it just, and like the mime turns back around, but the villain himself is like turned around, and is like, wait, I gotta turn back. It's just like this silly like dumb thing that's like, it's very Aardman to me now, having watched more of their stuff. And that stuff is it's like the only real example of that in the movie. The biggest plus I can give it is that it doesn't have a lot of of toilet humor. I hate toilet humor. I have always hated toilet humor. Even as a child, from the youngest age, I hated like potty humor. For the most part, I could probably laugh a little bit at certain things, but just like making a poop joke isn't. I like actively despise it. That's why I fucking hate Bo Raicho. You guys know I hate Bo Raicho. If I talked about how much I hate Bo Raicho, why do they fucking keep bringing back Bo Raicho in Mortal Kombat? He's in all the 3D games. He's in MKX. And he's like top tier in like every fucking game he's in. I can't believe it. So you always see him. He's just throwing up and farting everywhere. And it's like, fucking God, get this character out of this stupid series. Yeah, Flushed Away is perfectly average. It's fine. So jumping from that to apparently they had a very bad time doing Flushed Away. Maybe if I can like. Is there any? Maybe there's some details on the Wikipedia. It does have a Wikipedia, right? Yes, it does. Okay, that's weird. Production. Aardman's experience with DreamWorks during the making of the film led to a split between the two studios. And there's a New York Times article. Oh, great. Paywall. And let me just get rid of that. Haha, you have a oh, shit, I deleted the article. Fuck. Fucking, god damn it, paywall bullshit. Oh my god. Okay, let me see if I can use my uBlock Origin zapper to get rid of all the. There we go. Oh no. Damn it. I can't read the full article unless I pay. Okay, well, we're not gonna. I guess we won't expound on that. I love I love keeping that stuff for historical purposes. I gotta pay for it. Yeah, so they didn't have a good experience with them, and I can kind of see why. You could feel a lot of like, put a pop song in, have it end with a pop song, kind of like, kind of stuff. It feels really DreamWorksy. Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon. If we jump forward about 10 plus years. To now Aardman doing mostly their own thing. I think they're with like a different production studio. It's like another co-production, but it's really an Aardman thing. Really an Aardman project. I'm going to finally talk about Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon. This movie's great. I don't even know how much I have to say about it because it's kind of just really good. I really enjoyed the Shaun the Sheep shorts that we watched together. And this movie feels like a really extended Shaun the Sheep episode. It feels like a feature-length Shaun the Sheep episode that's like, it's not even that long. It's like an hour, it's like 90 minutes, something like that. Hour and a half, hour 25, about that length. And it's the same. We were like 5 minutes in. I was already really enjoying myself. And and I realized, I said, hey, there's been no dialogue this entire time. And Kat goes, yeah, the first Shaun the Sheep movie didn't have any dialogue either. Or it didn't have any dialogue the whole way through. And I was like, do you think this one will have any? She goes, probably not. And I was like, fuck yes. I love that. Thank you. Because I feel like if it was a studio film, they would force them to make someone talk, like some amount of dialogue. There's human characters in the movie, right, who like do things and like they're like, they're not just background characters. There's like real human characters in the movie, never speak. They'll make little sounds and noises, but there's no dialogue. Everything is just communicated visually, and it's wonderful because it's just what they do best, which is just showing things, telling a story visually, with just the movements of the characters, their expressions, little interactions that they have, funny little sight gags, and it's great. It's really funny. It's a really funny movie. Like, really clever little jokes. It's just it's good. It's about it's Farmageddon. It's about Shaun, their little farm, Shaun the Sheep's farm. There's like an alien that crash lands on the farm, and Shaun and the alien become friends, and Shaun has to help the alien get back home, and it's really cute and charming. And it moves at a very, very brisk pace. The pacing's great. You just A to B to C to D. You understand everything that's going on, and they just kind of use that to tell some funny jokes and set up these situations with, like, they get into wacky little hijinks. Messing around with alien technology, or going to town. Oh no, the alien discovers sugar and eats a bunch of sugar and all that. And it's great. It's really delightful. Kat said it's probably the hardest she's ever seen me laugh at, like, a movie she put on. For me. Granted, we haven't really watched that many comedies, but yeah, it's great. I would highly recommend it. It's on Netflix. It's probably on other stuff. Isn't it? Where is it? Pretty much just on Netflix. But yeah, I think that's just where they dumped it when it just got taken out of theaters. But yeah, if you got Netflix, check it out. It's very delightful. I feel like I spent more of this segment talking about why Flushed Away is just okay, excuse me, than, like, the movie I actually want to talk about. But really, that's all I have to say. There's not much that you can say other than it's good. There is, like, one thing. The one thing I was like, okay, they use some pop songs, and I'm like, meh, you don't have to. It's not like, and there's, like, score, right? There's soundtrack in the movie, right? There's like regular, like a non-licensed soundtrack. It has an OST, and like, it's not super egregious. It isn't like, oh god, like, it's not playing freaking, like, super mainstream pop music kind of thing, like, oh, okay, this was like a money deal. Like, everything generally, the songs they pick match up with what's going on. It doesn't feel too ham-fisted. It's more so, I think what's off-putting is hearing, like, spoken words, like hearing language in the movie when there's just absolutely zero dialogue the entire time. And then suddenly hearing someone speak, even in a song, is, like, kind of jarring. And it kind of clashes a little bit, but it only happens, like, maybe 3 times. And overall, it really didn't impact my serious enjoyment of the film. Yeah, absolutely delightful. Which brings me to the final thing that we watched together, which was the Castlevania series. Anime? The Netflix Castlevania show. It was just one of those things, like, we were looking for something to watch, and she gave me the remote, and I was like, you know what? I heard this was good. We should probably watch it. Especially because, like, the first season I knew was really short. It's like 4 episodes. I'm like, yeah, it's like, what, 2 hours? We'll just watch that and, like, go to sleep. And so we put it on, and Castlevania is a weird show, because I remember hearing really good things about it when it came out. And I was like, oh, hey, I guess they didn't fuck it up. And no, they didn't fuck it up. So, you know, it's not like the Monster Hunter movie. how do I describe it? It's kind of weird. I guess I'll start with the first season. So the first season of Castlevania. So number one, what I thought was really neat is that they're adapting Castlevania 3, which is a really cool game that doesn't get a lot of recognition. But of the Castlevania, if you're gonna like start the Castlevania story, right? Castlevania 3 is a pretty great point to like first thing to adapt, because it is technically a prequel, and it kind of is the most like of what the game itself offers, kind of has the most like stuff to draw from to adapt. Like there's multiple party members, so you have like you actually have like, oh, we can actually have a cast of characters who like hang out and go on an adventure. You have a progression. So one neat thing that Castlevania 3 does is like branching paths and things like that on the map, that so you could pick which level to go to. Like there's like a progression of how the levels follow. It's not just kind of sort of arbitrary. I mean, like the Castlevania 3, kind of an off topic, but Castlevania 3 kind of attempts where Simon's Quest kind of failed with the open world stuff. Simon's Quest kind of tones it down and kind of like streamlines it and combines that part with like the kind of linear style from Castlevania 1. And yeah, anyway, so there's like it's a great starting point. Whoever had it was a great idea to adapt Castlevania 3, because you're setting up the whole Belmont family and yeah, all this. So you get the first I think Trevor was I believe in the game's canon, he's like the first one to fight Dracula or something like that. He was the first Belmont to fight Dracula. He started the Belmont Dracula conflict that, you know, repeats every 100 years or something like that. So the first season, not a lot happens. It felt really weird. I was expecting a lot more to get. I was expecting it to be a lot more compact, but it like takes its time to the point where I'm like, so how does this end? It's pretty much Trevor. He's a bum. They do the whole thing with like, oh, Dracula's what, you know, the classic story from the games. Dracula's wife, who is a human, gets burned at the stake for being a witch. He freaks out and declares a war on humanity. Starts summoning a horde of darkness, an army of the undead and the monstrous, to roam the countryside and attack humanity. And Trevor's just sort of this like kind of bum. He's the Belmont family was basically they really lean into the idea that the church in this world has become overly like institutional. It's become corrupt. They don't they're like the church from Warhammer. It's like the church in 40K. Just overly worked into their like institutional mindset. And they've basically excommunicated the Belmont clan, because they think that they're like corrupted or something, when they're really the only ones who know how to fight monsters. And then he finds this kind of town that's just been under siege, and sort of ends up kind of roped into helping this kind of traveling, this nomadic sort of group of people called speakers, who are these sort of like almost like these traveling sort of sages. They record all their history orally, and they pass things down just through like spoken word and stuff like that. And he has to basically, so the church is blaming the speakers for the attacks on the town by the undead, and basically Trevor has to. He kind of like he's kind of going through. It's really Trevor focused. It's like getting him kind of established and back up on his feet. How does he kind of pick up the torch again? How does he get back in the game? find like a new motivation, at least, somewhat. And and then what Kat was looking forward to is she knew that Sifa was in the show, and she really was looking forward to Sifa showing up. And Sifa does not show up until like midway through episode 3 or something like that. And then the ending of the show is pretty much they find Alucard. And then it's like a cliffhanger, and I was like, oh wow, they were very confident that this and to be honest, to be fair, like apparently, I think I looked it up. I was curious about the production history. Apparently season 2 was like announced the same day season 1 came out. That's really common. That's like a really common thing. I'm assuming what it was is they were like, okay, we think we kind of trust, they trusted the production enough. Usually most cartoons, most shows, to be honest, well, specifically cartoons, like specifically animation, because animation has a longer, it can have a much longer production time. Like you kind of got to get it started a little earlier than some live action stuff. So what'll happen pretty often is that a lot of animated series will get at least 2 seasons, because like it's basically the production studios, like, or the whoever's paying for it, their upfront sort of buy is like, okay, you'll get 2 seasons, and if the first season does well, you'll do the second season. The second season will also probably get at least like a guarantee. I mean, sequels always have like a guaranteed, what is it, 40% return? You make at least 40% of what the original made, that kind of thing. And if the second season premieres well, then we'll renew you for a third, and then so on and so on and so on. They kind of plan this stuff in advance. They don't say, like, they don't announce like, oh, the Castlevania series is going to be 2 seasons. They say, hey, Castlevania is getting a 4-episode series on Netflix, and then the day that it gets announced, to get it back in the news cycle, like 6 hours after it's dropped, or like a day or 2 after it's dropped, season 2 has been greenlit. They already paid for season 2 when they bought the show. That's what they don't want to tell you. So it kind of feels, so season 2 is like 8 episodes, which is funny because it almost feels like they wanted like a 12-episode season. But the first season is like a little trial run, almost like, hey, like it was like a little trial run of like a little proof of concept. Like, hey, let's not go too crazy animating 12 whole episodes. Let's start you guys off with like 4. And then around the time it premieres, you can start working on the next one, kind of thing. I don't know if that was like exactly how it went down, but yeah, and so like it really feels like, oh well, I'm glad we're watching this now that there's like 4 seasons out, so we can just go straight to figure out what this cliffhanger goes to. Excuse me. So season 2, we watched season 1 and 2. Season 2, the gang's all assembled. Trevor, Sifa, and Alucard, and you know what? They're really cool together. Trevor's this kind of like, he's still sort of a deadbeat. Like he's got a little fire back in him again, but he's still kind of like, fuck yeah, guy. Alucard is this sort of haughty kind of like he and Trevor don't really get along, obviously because Alucard's like a half vampire and the Belmonts kill vampires, so there's sort of that like inbuilt kind of rivalry. They kind of like to hate on each other. They sort of, they don't legitimately dislike each other, really. They have that fun kind of like, they talk shit to each other, but they don't super seriously like want to kill the other one. And they work together and stuff like that. And it's like and Sifa's kind of like their level-headed one who she holds everyone together. And it's a solid little trio dynamic. And the thing with season 2 is that season 2 is So Kat and I had very different opinions on season 2. A lot of season 2 is spent with in Dracula's castle with him, with Big D, and his generals, who I'm pretty sure are like all bosses from Castlevania 3, as well as these 2 human characters who are actually from Curse of Darkness, which was a game that I didn't realize existed, because Curse of Darkness, could you come up with a more generic name for a Castlevania game? But no, it wasn't, which apparently had Trevor in it, which is apparently what seasons 3 and 4 are kind of adapting. And they introduce a character from Curse of Darkness, or 2 of them, Simon and Isaac, in this season, and kind of build them up. So you spend a lot of time with Dracula's court. You spend a lot of time in the castle with characters talking to each other about why they want to send the army here instead of here, and why they believe, what they believe about the world and people, and their thoughts on Dracula, and why they think these things, and their backstories, and the way they see the world. And Kat fucking hated it. I could tell. I could tell her next to me, she was so bored. Okay, my Audacity just lagged for a second. She was so bored watching it. And I felt a little awkward because I love that shit. I won't lie to you guys. I love long sequences of characters talking to each other about what they believe and why they believe it, and just like learning about each other and understanding what kind of, the audience gets to understand what kind of people they are. I eat that shit up. It was some tasty just characterization, I guess. I don't know. I understand where she's coming from, and if you thought that was boring as shit, I get it. There's like no action for God, like 4 episodes straight, and no, you can feel in like an 8-episode series, you can feel the points where the writers were like, fuck, we haven't like had any action in this Castlevania show in a while. And there's like filler action scenes. There's at least 2 that I can remember. There's one where Godbrand, was that his name? Godbrand, the Viking vampire. There's totally like, I could just see them and like, fuck, what do we do? Godbrand has a dream about a time that he killed some guys and had a lot of fun killing some guys. And then he wakes up, and then we're back, and people talk about their feelings for more. It has no impact on anything. It leads to nothing. But we got to show people dying. We got to show some heads getting chopped off. Godbrand is getting impatient, like the audience, and he leads the other generals, and they go on a night raid on a town, and they kill some people. And I was waiting for that to come back up. I was waiting for like the consequences of that. I was waiting for that to be a setup for something. No, it's just filler. It's just there because they realized that they hadn't had any action in like 2 episodes. So we need to have some people explode. And hey, I mean, it's well animated. When action happens in this show, it's slick. It's well choreographed. It's cool. The characters use their abilities and their weapons in cool ways. The monsters are neat. The powers that people use are cool. It's really well done. It just doesn't happen very much in the 2nd season. And I could see that being a sticking point for a lot of people. It doesn't help that like the main characters are in like a basement for like 90% of the show. Not like 90%. They get to the basement in like episode 2. They go to like the Belmont estate. They go to the Belmont estate, and they go because they go into the basement because like, oh, they need to, they're looking for, the basement is the only thing that's left of the house pretty much. And it's this giant like library, basically this multi-story library that goes deep underground, and it's just filled to the brim with like trinkets and weapons and knickknacks and just books of history and knowledge about fighting the undead and all of these things. And they spend like 6 episodes in there. They spend like 4 or 5 episodes in this basement reading books and having a couple conversations about what they believe and why they believe it. And you know, that stuff with them is fun. Like they're a solid main cast of characters, but man, they do not feel like the main characters in the show in season 2. And then in like the last 2-3 episodes, it, in Kat's words, gets good because something happens. There's a big action sequence. It's basically this long, like 2-episode climax. The last episode is this weird kind of like really extended epilogue. But the episodes like 6 and 7 are just like the real climax of the season. You get the confrontation with Dracula, and this is like a full spoiler thing. I don't know if you picked up on that by now. This is like a full spoiler thing. I'm just gonna spoil the end of the season. They get this the confrontation with Dracula. That stuff was great. I thought Dracula was pretty interesting. Like I really enjoy learning about the psychology of characters, and I think that they did a good job. Arguably, you know, took it a little too slowly, but I think they did a good job of establishing Dracula as a character without him really speaking much, and mostly just people talking about him and what they think of him, and their kind of interpretations of who he is. How he's this, like, you kind of get this picture that he's this obviously this kind of ferocious, angry vampire lord, but like on the inside he's this kind of just like tired, broken, very hurt person who is lashing out like in anger, but really at the heart of it, it's like this bitterness and this resentment for humanity, like this just ultimate misanthrope, nihilism. He just wants to kill everything, and this is kind of like a point of contention between the generals, is that they kind of see, they worry because they're like, okay, if we kill, do you want to kill all the humans? Because like then we can't eat things. Or do you just want to like lower the population and basically make them livestock? Or what's your deal? What's your plan? And he basically just tells them to like shut up and he'll take care of it and they'll be fine. And they kind of, some of them don't really trust him, and they might have reason to. Like, I think that like I think it's neat that you could have taken that in a couple different ways. Maybe Dracula really would have taken care of the other vampires. Maybe his goal was just, he was so nihilistic and jaded and broken and resentful at that point that he really did just want to wipe out all human life on the earth, and then all the vampires and everything, and basically keep himself as the last one alive, so that he could just like live in a world without humanity, and then, I don't know, die himself or something like that. Like, I think there's an interesting psychology there, and there's a pretty good last fight between him. So, you know, Trevor and Sifa, they do their part. The writers do a good job making sure that each of the three gets pretty balanced in terms of like contributing to the fights that they're in. like that you can see, and I think it does good to like for how few action scenes there are with all of them. You do get the sense that they do actually gel and work together, and that they work together as a team, even if they don't always get along. That they fight well together, and okay, that's like an interesting way of. It's like a fun way that in a show like this, and like an action show, to show that the characters do work together, or to show like a different kind of relationship between them. But really, this is a fight between Alucard and his father, and it's really good. Like, the action is great. It's really cool to see these two super powerful, like, vampire characters who are like fast, and they can kind of like float, and they're super strong and powerful, and they can use this magic, just kind of like go kind of all out against each other, with this added drama that it's father and son. And God, the scene where Alucard finally kills Dracula, wow, that's great. If you've seen it, wow, that's great. Dracula basically smashes Alucard into a room. He walks in, he realizes that it's Alucard's childhood room, and he has this moment where like literally like the blood clears, like the blood red from his eyes kind of clears, and God, the voice actor does a great job. What's his name? I want something with like an AY. Something with an AY. Dracula. Graham McTavish, that's his name. He does a great job of going from this just like utter rage to this moment where he just stops, and he there's this complete lapse, and Alucard doesn't take advantage of the moment. He's just kind of like dumbfounded by what he's seeing. His father, he looks around, and Dracula just he just kind of like, he's just talking to himself, and he's like, oh God, he's talking to like his dead wife pretty much, as if she were there. He's killing their boy. He's fucking, he thinks about, he remembers the times that they painted his room and they made toys for him, and I was like, I'm getting choked. This is really sad. It's like, oh God, like all the weight of like this monster who's become just completely crashes down on him in this moment. He's completely paralyzed pretty much with like shame and guilt, and like he doesn't even know what to do. And then in kind of a symbolic sense, Alucard like breaks a piece of wood, like he breaks the bedpost of like his childhood bed off, and stakes Dracula through the heart, because like it's the only way it could have ended. It's the only way that it could have ended, really. Like, what else was he supposed to do? That's like the impression that you get. Like, the whole drama of that's always been like a compelling part of the Alucard character in the games, right? That I don't know how, I've only really played Symphony of the Night with Alucard, like, you know, interacting with the big D, but like that's always like it's such a great material for a story. It's just the son coming back to kill his father, and like all these complicated emotions that are tied up in that. And I think that like, for as much as I wish there was more of Alucard in like season 2, I think that they do a pretty good job kind of communicating that sort of melancholy that he has about this situation. That like he has this duty to stop his father, but obviously, you know, he has some emotions. He has some things which he's like, you know, he's overcoming, and he's not gonna give up because he feels bad about killing his father, but it's there and it's real, and he has to like think about it. I think that they did a really job with that. I thought that scene was super powerful. And the last scene of the show is Dracula's dead. The horde of monsters has, I don't know if it's dissipated, but the threat from Dracula is gone. The war is pretty much over. And Trevor and Sifa basically, Alucard basically says, yeah, I kind of want to go fucking die now. And Trevor's like, kind of convinces him, like, no, you have such a great opportunity of all the knowledge. He's like, I'll give you the Belmont, like, I'll give you the Belmont, like, treasure trove, pretty much. And you take the castle, and you take this, like, this is one of the greatest collections of information in the world, with these two resources together, and you should make something better out of it. Like, you should, and it's like, oh, this is like, Trevor wouldn't have said this at the start of the show. Trevor would have just been like, yeah, I'll fucking do it for you, dude. Right now, right here. But now, like, Trevor, because he's gone through his own little development of, like, now he feels like, yeah, I can find meaning in my own life. Like, maybe Alucard can do the same. And he doesn't want to just see this person who's done nothing but bicker with the whole show. He still doesn't want to see him just go and die, right? And it's like, some character growth and like, cool. And Alucard, they leave. Sifa and Trevor. Kat told me that all she wanted the show to be was like the Trevor and Sifa show. And they kind of go off, and they're like, well, maybe we can have some more adventures together. And Alucard is just sort of left at the castle, and there's a little epilogue scene in the last episode of him, like going into a room and fixing a portrait of his mother, and then he sits down in a chair, and he just starts crying. And he just starts, like, weeping. And then it just pulls back on a shot of the whole room and him just crying his fucking eyes out. And then the season's over. And that's how it ends. And I really liked it. Yeah, so I guess spoilers end here. Or if you're not... Or if, I guess, I don't know, if you want to skip or something. I don't know. Will I mark it? Maybe I'll mark where the spoilers start and end. Yeah, in the podcast, so I guess check out for that. So would I recommend the first 2 seasons of Castlevania? If you're like me and you can enjoy long sequences where, like, the whole episode is characters talking about what they believe, who they are and what they believe, and flashbacks and telling you about, like, the psychology of the character. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, like me, yeah, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. And it's kind of topped off with some very slick, well animated, well choreographed action, with cool usage of characters, like characters' abilities and things. Lots of, things from the game. Sifa uses a spell from the games. Obviously, Trevor's got the whip and the short sword. A couple, like, enemies and stuff. There's, like, that big bird thing. It's like that thing with, like, the bird head that's holding a spear. Like that guy. Like, that thing shows up. And I'm like, from the games. There's a kind of a cute little sequence where it's like a very subtle reference, but Trevor and Sifa, it's when they find Alucard, and he's in this, like, super deep underground lair, basically, and they have to go. They basically fall through all these layers of stuff, of basically underground castle, and they drop onto these gears. And they have to kind of, like, there's, like, it's only like 1 second, but I'm pretty sure it's a reference to, like, all those parts in Castlevania where, like, you gotta do platforming on moving gears and stuff like that, like giant gears. Just kind of, some fun stuff like that. Like, not super in your face, like, this is a reference to the game. Just, oh, hey, it's that thing. Oh, it's that thing. Yeah, like the stuff that you would want to see, basically, if you're coming from the games. But also perfectly understandable if you have never played the games and don't know anything about it. It's just, hey, it's a vampire show. It's a show about a vampire. Well, it's a guy who kills vampires and stuff. But, yeah, overall good. We're really interested in the later seasons because I don't know. We're very curious about like where the second I guess the second half of the series will go. Seasons 3 and 4. Like, will it get more actiony? I wouldn't mind. Cat's like, okay, it has like one more chance. If there's more action and not just a lot of talking all episode, maybe she'll like it. And if there's more Trevor and Sifa, which I would also like to see, yeah, I think it could maybe turn it around, at least for her. For me, I'd love more of just season 2. But hey, that's just me. There's a reason I don't rule the world. Yeah, but overall, pretty good. I have to say I enjoyed my time with it, but take that with a grain of salt that I'm a weirdo. Was that the last thing? Yeah, so that's kind of the last thing, but there's a couple things that I wanted to mention. First of all, this funny little story. We're actually going to talk about video games now. This was sort of my the Castlevania thing was my segue into talking about games. See, talk about things we watched, a thing we watched based on a game. Now games, dude, it's all connected. The Amazon Luna will lose over 50 more games in February as the library continues to shrink. It's from 9 to 5 Google, courtesy of Ben Schoon. Now, this was really interesting to me. This is a really interesting story to me because I didn't realize the Amazon Luna came out. I kind of forgot about it. I've never heard anyone talk about it. Like, I've never heard anyone talk about it outside of like a news article. Do you guys even know what the Luna is? Amazon Luna is their premier game streaming service. It's like Stadia, guys. Remember how great that went a couple episodes ago? It's like Stadia. Well, I guess it's losing 50 games. And, they kind of point out that it's normal for streaming platforms and streaming services to lose titles. They lose some, they gain some. There's a lot. And the list of ones that are leaving I find kind of interesting. El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron. Do you guys remember El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron? I don't know if anyone... I feel like I'm the only person who remembers what that game was. Who came out with... Crimco. I just remember that being like a really weird, like, action, like 3D action game that was based off of, like, the Bible? Like, the book of something? The Metatron is, like, God's messenger. Pretty sure. I remember right. It's like specifically the angel that was like God's messenger. And from what I remember, like your health was tied to like your health was represented by how much clothing you're wearing. So there's just like a lot of naked guys just everywhere. Just like a lot of naked guys in your Bible game, and it looked cool. I've always kind of had this interest in playing it. And it's just every now and again I'll remember, oh yeah, El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron. Gianna Sisters Twisted Dreams. Remember Gianna Sisters? The, or Twisted Dreams specifically? The, like, attempt to reboot the series? Back in, like, 2012? Based off of the Gianna Sisters that was on, like, what was it, DOS or something? Which was, like, a legally distinct Mario ripoff. What else was getting taken off? The Medium. Oh, boy. Oh, no, you won't be able to play the Medium. Oh, no. No More Heroes. Another World. Blood Rain, Terminal Cut, and Terminal Cut 2? Asteroids Deluxe? You're paying for a streaming service so you can play Asteroids? And Centipede? That's another one that's... And Crystal Castles. Okay. Flashback. Forsaken. The game just came out. Jesus. A bunch of SNK stuff. Garo. Metal... Oh no, I won't be able to... I won't be able to play Garo on a streaming service. Oh no. But the online was so good. Why would you ever play Garo on a game streaming service when you can just go play it for free on Fightgate? Metal Slug 3, Samurai Showdown 5 Special, probably some Pong. They had Pong on there. Oh no, we're losing Pong. What was... I look at the library and I'm like, what is the intent? Like, is Pong really a value add for any streaming service? It wasn't even the first Pong game. No, wait, which one was, no, the Odyssey came out, no, the Odyssey... Pong might have been the first Pong type game. I think I'm getting confused with the 2600. The 2600 came out after the Magnavox Odyssey, but... yeah. Last Blade 2, also, more... more SNK stuff. Yeah, Tempest. What's with all these weird, like, Atari games that they had on there? Yeah. Did you know that the Luna still exists? Do you have any more desire to play it? Remember when Stadia shut down and there were people who couldn't get their progress back from the game, like port their progress over, so they just lost everything and they don't even get to keep the game? Yeah, streaming services is a good idea, guys. What games does it have? Amazon Luna games. What can you play on the Amazon Luna? Yakuza Kiwami. Skatebird. Do they have any... Where's their library? They just show me 4 games that are, like, getting deleted, I guess? On the 28th? At the end of the month? See all included games. Okay, Luna. Oh, Prime. So you gotta deal with Prime. Oh, God, there's so many packages. So you can just get the Jackbox package for $5 a month for all the Jackbox games. You can get Ubisoft Plus, which is just Ubisoft games. You can get the Prime Gaming, which is just included with your Prime, and you get like 4 games that rotates every month. And then you get Luna Plus, which is their whole library. Okay, for $10 a month, what do you get? Alien Isolation, Another World, except that's leaving. Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? Asteroids. Beach Buggy Racing 2 Hot Wheels Edition. Bee Simulator. There's a Blair Witch game? What is this? 2019? Oh God, Bloober Team. Blood Rain, and I guess Blood Rain. Oh, Blood Rain 2 Terminal Cut. Not Blood Rain Terminal Cut 2. I'm like, where are they? Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Vanilla, Forgotten Worlds, a lot of retro stuff. A lot of retro Capcom stuff actually. That's kind of neat. Hey, you can play Castlevania, the Anniversary Collection, Control, Devil May Cry 5, Dragon's Lair. Okay, Dusk, really? Huh. Is that the right Forsaken? Oh, I'm thinking about Forspoken. It's like, this does not look like the right game. Guacamelee. Yeah. You certainly, it's a selection. It's not the worst. It's like, there's good games on here. There's a lot of good games on here, actually. But, like, do I want to... I could probably just buy a lot of these. I guess the idea is that it's cheaper, right? It's cheaper to pay for a streaming service, with the drawback that the game can be taken away from you at any moment, and maybe the servers will go down and then you'll never have it. Yeah. I feel like all these streaming services, it reminds me of like a lot of those, like, you ever watch Shark Tank? And one of the classic blunders that they'll do on Shark Tank is they'll say, oh, well, if we can just get 10% of the market, and like, it's like, oh, yeah, of course. Well, if we're successful, then it will be successful. It's like, yeah, numbskull, you will be. Excuse me. That's kind of like the only way that I can really see. That's how like these streaming services come off, which is, hey, if it's successful, then if enough people buy in, then we can have an ecosystem that we can support. It's just that a lot of people don't want it. A lot of people just aren't interested. Excuse me. Yeah. The Luna, ladies and gentlemen. A couple more things. There was finally got a demonstration of Tekken 8 at the Tekken World Tour. Finally got some details on this game. And of course they presented it. I expected nothing less. We're gonna get... I'm just watching this thing, and they play like a trailer for a tournament that we already know is going to happen. This is how every single Japanese company does announcements. They play a trailer for something you've already seen. They play a trailer for something else you already know. They play a trailer for merchandise. They play a trailer for a pop-up cafe that's only going to be in one location in Japan. And then they say, here's the thing that you want us. Here's the game announcement. Here's the actual new game. And then they play the whole opening, the logo and everything. And then it's the producer, and he goes, hey guys, I'm the producer of Tekken 8. You might know me as the producer of Tekken 8. I'm here to talk to you about Tekken 8. And you're like, show me the fucking game already. Yeah, they did just as much putzing around as I expect from every single Japanese live stream. But hey, there was actual information packed into this like 40-minute thing. So finally, a demonstration of this like heat system that they've been showing off and being really weird and vague about. And so one of my frustrations is that like even when they do get to get to telling you about the thing you want to hear about, it's always with like the weirdest English. Like, I don't want to be mean. There's just like this, like, they just use words in ways that, like, that's not how you use the word. Like, you would never say it like that. They would never say, like, they were just some really odd phrasing. Like, I remember them saying, like, the intention of the game is, or yeah, like the vision for the game is so that the player feels aggression in each part of an attack, and you're like, or like inside each part of it of the attack, and you're like, what does that mean? Is that like a metaphor? Is that like supposed to be poetic, or is that literal? Are you just adding more hit sparks? Is that what that means? But they did give us an explanation of what all this stuff is. And I think it's interesting because traditionally, historically, Tekken has not had very many mechanics, so to speak. Or systems, I should say. It's got plenty of mechanics, but not a lot of systems per se, outside of like when they added rage, and like, oh, you get a rage drive, which is basically like or a rage art, which is like your super, basically. It's like, that's kind of like the most complex the game got. Tekken is a very simple system. I think that's part of what makes it very easy to watch, is that you really don't have to know, like, I think Guilty Gear is kind of difficult for some people to watch because the system is so complex. There's so much going on. The meter is really complex. There's multiple different gauges. Characters will have their own unique resources. There's all these hidden mechanics that aren't like guts and stuff. And I think like trying to explain that to like understand the stakes and things like that, like once you understand the system, it's awesome and super fun to play in. But like trying to explain it to someone is like, here's a bunch of information. You gotta like understand a bunch of information and like digest it. And then once you've done that, you're good to go. And you can really enjoy, I think, watching Guilty Gear. But Tekken has never had that problem. And I think that part of it is just like the simplicity. It's just like, it's just a fight. There's health bars. And the one thing you have to know is that, when he gets low on health, they flash and they can do like a super strong move. Like a comeback move. That's pretty much the most you got to understand with Tekken. Not a lot else going on in terms of like resources or status effects or things like that. Like there are little, there's like, being on the ground. Characters have stances they can go into, but you don't have to know that to enjoy watching that. Tekken 8 looks like it's getting a little more complex with having like adding on top systems, and they're doing it with this heat system. So basically, what they want to do is they kind of want to reward aggressive play in Tekken. And the way that this works is they're doing this with the heat. And heat is essentially this bar that I guess you start either, I don't know if it's like you get to use it once per game or once per round, or if it like regenerates after you use it, but you start with the bar full. And you can basically... you can either pop heat just as like an activation. It's just a button you hit, or you can activate it via like a specific move. If a specific move connects, every character has like around 5 moves that will activate heat. They call them like heat engage, and that will instantly put you into heat and make them like dash forward. And they're kind of like, they wanted to, this is also another thing with like, they're kind of trying to, Tekken's had another problem with like, not really a problem, but it's had this sort of thing with characters have these gigantic 300 long move lists. And they were kind of using like, okay, every character we wanted to quote unquote bring out like their unique characteristics, right? Their unique moves. And there's so much bloat in the move sets that, like, I think that instead of trying to cut moves out, they're trying to focus newer players who don't know how to... Because the kind of, like, meme with learning Tekken characters is that every character has, like, 7... Yeah, they have, like, 100 moves, but really they've got, like, 7 that you use. And they're kind of trying to direct people towards the important moves, the key moves that you want to be looking at, that'll give you like a strong. I think they even said like if you just learn how to, if you learn like understand like the 5 heat engage moves your character has, you can jump online or play against other people and put up a fight if you at least understand like what they are and basically like what their functions are. This is a poke. This is a big call out move. That kind of thing. So the heat engage moves will just put you into this heat state. And the heat state, you've got this bar that starts depleting, this timer essentially, and while you're in heat, and ready to fuck them up, fuck your opponent up, you get access to these couple unique mechanics. You have like this, I think they're called the heat smash, which is this big blow basically that you can only use in heat. It's kind of like their version, this game's version of the rage drives, which were also moves that you could only use while you were in rage in Tekken 7, but they said that they've basically taken that out and re-implemented it into the heat system. So you can either do the heat smash or the heat, whatever, or the basically a run cancel, like heat dash, I think they call it. And then the way that you activate heat, so using, I think, heat smash will like use up the entire bar. Like if you use it, you basically like leave heat, you expend all of it essentially. But if you using the dash does not do that. And they also have like this extra thing, this is like really complex for a Tekken game. You basically have like a charge of like these special heat moves that you can use. And you can have up to 2 of them, and depending on how you enter heat, you'll get 1 or 2. So if you just do like the raw activation, you only get to use 1. But if you go into it with like a heat engage, I think this is part of like how they're kind of like incentivizing you to learn these couple moves, right? That they want to direct you towards. If you do it with heat engage, then you get to use 2 of these special heat abilities. So you can do like 2 dashes. You can do a dash into like a heat smash, or just a heat smash, and then that's it. So I guess theoretically, like an optimal combo. I guess it would work differently depending on like every character, but an optimal combo might have like combo into a heat engage, and then like a sequence, like a follow-up sequence into like then you extend it with like a dash cancel with another sequence, and then end that with like a heat smash. Like that's in my mind how I picture it. Honestly, working kind of like KOF's like max mode, specifically like quick max in KOF 15, where like you automatically dash forward as soon as you activate it, so you can combo easier. One thing that I did think was cool, that like, man, they are really not afraid of just dumping extra shit onto their characters. Where like one thing with the heat system is that's pretty much all the way heat works universally. But there's character specific heat properties. So characters get different properties on their moves, not even specifically like the heat engage moves. These are like different. When they're in heat, some of their moves get like extra properties, or they get powered up. They show off like King has this like charge move. He runs forward and like does a tackle. And when he's in heat, that move becomes like armored and stuff like that. And they showed, I think with Paul, where when he's in heat, he has this move that instead of just knocking the opponent down, it like ground bounces and shit. And I can only imagine, like, are there going to be additional like counter hit heat properties, like counter wire heat, heat wire properties on moves? Like how complex are the combo routes going to be with heat in the mix? And honestly, like, to me, it looks cool. And I'm saying this, so obviously there's people who are dooming about the game already. They're saying, oh my god, it's just going to be brain dead offense, just run up first thing, force a 50-50, whoever wins the 50-50 just cleans house, and it's just going to be nonsense, right? It's going to ruin pure Tekken, the purity of Tekken. And as someone who has never really put time into a Tekken game, I have no attachment to the way that Tekken plays. So as someone who is just like looking at the series through kind of like a fresh perspective, it looks cool. I still haven't seen a lot of gameplay. I don't know if they've even done like a full match of gameplay yet, which I would like to see. But the game looks, the systems, like, I like them. I like systems that force aggression and interaction. I do like games that have slightly more intense damage scaling and stuff like that. I don't really like two-touch games. That's like probably my biggest sticking point with Strive, honestly, is that Strive is much more of a two-touch game than any other Guilty Gear is, because the damage scaling is so much more lenient in a lot of situations. And there's so many just extra little free damage you can get, like with wall break and stuff. Soft knockdowns and stuff like that. I see, like, perhaps, it could come out and it'll just be a big mess, and it'll actually be a huge disaster. Or maybe just the classic Tekken defensive options, backdash and sidestep, will be appropriate answers to the direction that they're going in. And it is kind of funny because, like, one of the overwhelming things I always hear from Tekken people is that the game's been basically the same since Tekken 5. It's played basically the same way. And can we just get some change? And then I'm like, okay. Do you know what change looks like? No, but do a change that I like. Okay, well, we can't guarantee that you'll like it. I can't say, like, much of the direction that it's like how far are they actually leaning into this direction. I think I might have even said before that, like, yeah, anytime they talk about, don't believe anything you see in like developer interviews or things like that for fighting games. Don't, like, take everything they say with a grain of salt, because, like, especially if they're talking to, like, a magazine or some kind of publication, they're gonna be making it sound more exciting for a casual audience. Oh, it's an aggressive game where you get to do a lot of stuff. This definitely seems like they're very clearly building the game. Excuse me. To be to have systems that reward offense. It's not as extreme as Guilty Gear, where Guilty Gear literally has a system that penalizes you for being too defensive. Or too uninteractive, I should say. But they're explicitly rewarding you for being aggressive and for interacting with the opponent. Oh yeah, that's the other thing, is one of the big changes that I think is kind of interesting is recoverable health. You can take, like, gray life, I think based off of blocking or something like that, or even some like taking regular hits, and it's literally like Bloodborne. Like, you can if you attack the opponent, you can get some life, you can recover some of your life back, which I think is interesting. And there's apparently moves, I think, like lows will actually deplete gray life. Like, it won't knock the whole thing off like Killer Instinct, like a finisher in Killer Instinct, or an ender in Killer Instinct will, like, cash in the damage essentially. But it does, like, reduce some, and I think that's interesting. It might actually be one of those interesting parts of the game. It's interesting to me because it incentivizes the opposing player to then, like, respond and to punish and to react and things like that. And I think that, like, if it's balanced properly, if, like, the relative, like, it depends on, how a lot of the moves in the game are balanced, like, frame advantage wise, it could lead to some pretty interesting scenarios, I think. Like, some pretty interesting back and forth and, like, decision making of, like, should I re-engage? Should I, like, is that plus? Is that minus? If I'm the attacker, do I want to go for something kind of risky? Do I want to go for, like, a big mix-up to, like, shave off a bunch of their gray life? What do I, like, but what if I get punished for that? They could they could gain all of that back, or gain like half the damage I just did back, and stuff like that. Might make people more defensive, who knows? But I think it's looking interesting. Great. I really love the UI in the game. I think the UI looks really good. This like kind of metal, kind of gritty look that it's got going on. I like it. The whole like chain fire, like burning metal thing like that they've got kind of had going on in the branding. I really like it. So yeah. Also, Arika is apparently doing some work for Bandai. Is doing some work on Tekken 7 and 8, which to me means that it's going to get rollback. It means that it's going to get rollback because Arika is, as far as I'm aware, I'm trying to think of other 3D or, fighting EX layer is like, it's not like, is it like full 3D? It's got like 3D elements, right? There's like a Z-axis, right? They're kind of the only other developer who's done a game like that with rollback, and they know how to do it. And I don't know why I almost said Capcom. Bandai would be bringing them on if they weren't planning on adding rollback to Tekken 8 and maybe even T7. So, you know what? I think it works out for everyone, because you know what? This is the great thing about rollback. This is like what happened with Exerd. I'm going to do an Exerd stream soon, by the way. If Tekken 7 gets rollback, Tekken 8's got rollback. Hey, if you don't like T8, go play T7. Oh, you don't like T7? Guess what? You can go emulate Tekken 6. You can go emulate Tekken 6 on a PS3 emulator. Remember those wonders, those wonders of the world? RPCS3, the eighth wonder of the world. And it's got online, and you can play it. I'm pretty sure with rollback. Like you can like get online and play with people. You might have to join like a Discord server, but like you can do it. It's got online functions and rollback capabilities. You can make it work. If you don't want to play T7, if you really want to play T6 or an older style that you like more. So like, yeah, the more things get rollback, the happier we can all be. So I might just cop it. I don't have necessarily like, oh, this character's got to be on the roster, or I'm not gonna buy it, because again, I don't have too much attachment to most of the cast in terms of like, oh, I gotta play this character. Oh yeah, they have the trailer for Nina. They made her extra. Ooh. in this version, she has a great design, very like secret agent-y. I think the bridal gown design from 7 was weird but kind of fun. But I do like them leading it more into this like secret agent thing with her. Good. 2 thumbs up from me. And Kat, she liked that one too. I wonder what's Anna gonna look like. I wonder. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if I got this like day one or around release date, and I'll tell you guys what I think about it when I do. And finally, God, fuck it. Okay, I'm gonna speed through this. I finished Quantum Conundrum. What did I think of it? I enjoyed it. That's it. To get a little into my thoughts, if you liked Portal, you will like Quantum Conundrum. If you liked the gameplay of Portal, I should say. And I think that's kind of the thing that Portal has over Quantum Conundrum, over QC, is that Portal has a very compelling storyline, a really interesting storyline, even if you're not much of a puzzle gamer. Even if you're not super into solving the puzzles and everything, you can, the writing is very witty, and the interactions between the characters, the very few that there are, mostly, just GLaDOS or Wheatley talking to you and stuff like that. It's very like compelling and interesting. Like you can watch someone play Portal and it's enjoyable in that kind of a way. Like that can kind of carry a lot of the game, right? It gives it a lot of soul, I want to say. Quantum Conundrum kind of has this issue where there isn't much of a story in there. Like, for as simple as Portal 1 is, there's like a real progression throughout it. It's okay, it starts out, you think everything's normal, but there's these kind of hints that something's amiss. There's these sort of like dark little like, kind of references to these sort of dark things in the background that could be going on. Some of maybe the history of the facility. Why are there all these, observation windows, but there's nobody watching me, right? This doesn't seem normal. Why is just an AI voice talking to me? And then, twist. And then, super tense third act. And it's great. It's a great compact little experience. Portal 2 has just a way bigger scale. It starts out one way. There's kind of like a midway twist where there's a villain switch up. Now you got to work with the villain, like the previous villain, and I always love that. I love. It's one of my favorite tropes is the villain and the main character having to work together. I love that. And you still get all these interactions. Like it's very, like these kind of like dynamic interactions between you and GLaDOS and Wheatley and all this stuff going on. Quantum Conundrum is kind of just like the puzzles, and while you're solving the puzzles, there's a guy talking to you. And it's like it's lighthearted, and the uncle character, he's got some quips and some references, and he's definitely like, he's not boring per se, but like there's not much of like a thrust. There isn't really that much conflict in the story besides the basic setup, right? Like, he's trapped in this like weird dimension and you have to save him. You have to like figure out how to get him out of there by solving physics puzzles. And then after that, it's pretty much just, he tells you things and then he kind of walks you through the game and gives you some hints here and there. And that's kind of it. And then the game sort of ends. Well, there's like a bit of like, tension, climax, something's going wrong at the last minute, and that stuff was kind of neat. It lasts all of 10 minutes. And then it's over. Kind of suddenly. It ended a little suddenly, to be honest. And it's weird because I feel like gameplay-wise, it's actually really cool. It took me a second to get into the game, but once I did, I actually really enjoy the main mechanics of the game. The whole like dimension hopping and everything, and switching to these different dimensions. The fluffy, the heavy, slowing time and then reversing gravity and like doing all these puzzles with them. And once the game starts to give you like 2 or 3 or 4 dimensions to work with in like a given puzzle, it can get really interesting. And the way that you use them, you can basically make moving platforms by alternating turning on the like reverse gravity dimension basically. And you use that like in tandem with like these other ones, and there's a really cool puzzle where basically it starts out and the way that you get access to the dimensions in a given puzzle room is there's like a little device, and each dimension has like a canister. You plug the canister into the device, and it's got like four slots, and the ones that are plugged in you can use remotely. And there's like a really neat puzzle where it gives you like 4 canisters up front, and you have to pick one, and then the one that you pick, that's the one that you start with, and then you can only solve the puzzle once you have all 4 of the canisters, all access to all 4 dimensions. But the order that you solve there's like all these mini puzzles within that, and the order you solve them in depends on which one you started with. And it's actually really neat. And there's all these different like areas inside of the room. It's like this big section, and this big large area that has all these kind of small little puzzles inside. And then one kind of leads you to the other, and it's really cool. I also felt like it was a little more freeform in the way that solutions, you could find solutions in certain ways. And here's kind of a fun thing. So there was like, there's one puzzle. It was called, I think it was, the name of it was Horse, and I believe Horse is a reference to like, it's HORSE with like dashes in the middle. And I'm pretty sure it's reference to like the game Horse, of like, spelling out the playing basketball, spelling out the letters if you miss the shot, right? What the puzzle is essentially there's like 4 laser beams, all one after the other, like walls of laser beams essentially that are impassable. And the laser beams are turned on via little beams of light that like go from a source to like a little, I guess, receptacle, and then that like powers on the laser. So if you block one of the beams, it turns off one of the laser walls. Well, you've got 2 of the laser lights, or like two of the like the activation beams are on one end of the room, like one wall, and then on the opposite wall is another 2, but they're like way up high. The first 2 are like, the ones on the right are like your level. The other 2 are like basically on the ceiling. And I got the sense that what I was supposed to do was there's a little like spring that you can you get like 2 boxes. And I was like, okay, and there's a spring underneath the activation beams that are on the left side that are like way up on the ceiling. So I'm like, okay, I think what I'm supposed to do is something to do with tossing one of these boxes into the beam, basically like going back and forth, blocking the different beams with the boxes, and I'm pretty sure you have to like toss one of them over one of the laser walls to use it on the other side. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And then I just kind of struggled with it for a few minutes, and then I just kind of checked, and what I was able to do is you have access to the slow motion dimension in this, which is basically like, because the box passes through the beam so quickly that there's only like a very small amount of time that it's actually deactivated. And it doesn't like deactivate all at once. It'll basically be like the laser stops being produced and there's like a gap, and then when it turns back on, the laser starts shooting again, but there's still like this gap that's basically traveling to the wall. And I realized, I was like, wait, can I do this? So what I did was I sprung up one of the boxes. I sprung up the box on the spring so that it hit the ones on the ceiling. So that deactivated 2 of them, because they're also staggered, right? Like the ones on the activation beams on the right, they only go to like the second and the 4th laser walls, and vice versa for the ones on the left, right? So you kind of got to go back and forth. So I sprung it up on so that it blocked off the first and the third walls. So those got like, there was a little gap traveling along those for a second, and you slow down as soon as it touches the beams, right? And then I just kind of walked over, and in the slow motion, just kind of like jumped up and down to block off the beams on the right-hand side a little bit. And then I just kind of walked through the gaps in every wall, and you did that to the end of the room. And I was like, oh, was I supposed to be able to do that? I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I only used one of the boxes that they gave me. I feel like I'm supposed to use both of them and like do a thing where I toss one over and slow down time and like run through. And no, I just like used one and then just blocked some off myself and just used the slow time to like run through all of them. And in some way, you might look at that as like a flaw. I think it's kind of fun. I kind of started to enjoy it. It's a very open system in a lot of ways, and I actually. And this was kind of fun for me. I was curious about this, so I just asked Kim Swift on Twitter. Because that's a thing you can do. It's crazy. You can just ask people things on the internet, and they might get back to you. And she did. And I was like, oh, she doesn't tweet very often, but she got back to me, like, fairly quickly. And I basically asked, hey, were the puzzles in Quantum Conundrum designed with like specific solutions in mind, or was there kind of only one for each one intended solution, like way to solve the puzzle in each like level? And she basically said, it kind of depends. I think her exact words were like, well, it depends. Anything can happen in like a physics puzzle. And I was like, oh, cool. She was really cool about it and she was nice. And I was like, oh, cool, thank you. Because some of these, it feels like I'm cheating. Because also, like, compared to Portal, like, a lot of puzzles in Portal, I finished and I don't know what other way I would have completed it. Like, I can't think of any like puzzles in Portal 1 or 2 where the solution was even kind of open-ended. Like, yeah, there's maybe different orders that you can do things in, but like taking like a completely different route, like not even using one of the tools they give you, like that beam like laser wall puzzle I just described. Like, is that like it felt like rigid, I guess, in Portal. The solutions felt very rigid. And that's not a knock against it, because I think they were really well designed. It's just kind of a different thing that Quantum Conundrum does that is kind of neat. I think it's kind of cool. And I actually really enjoyed playing around in its system. I might even go back and redo, because I think they might have some like bonus puzzles and stuff like that. Might do some of those. Yeah, I think like... Yeah, I have to say I did quite enjoy it. It's also pretty short. It's like 7 hours. It's a cool game with some fun puzzles, some fun physics puzzles. And the only way comparing it to Portal, it's so hard not to compare it to Portal, right? The only way it really, like, I think pales in comparison would really be in the story and the narrative. Because there really isn't much of one. But if we ignore Portal, I think it's a really solid, interesting little puzzle game that doesn't really have any misses, I have to say. I would recommend it. Especially if you liked really into the gameplay of Portal. And I think that's kind of it. Yeah, I think I got it. Well, we're going to like 2.5 hours. If you've been listening to this song, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. You can check out my Patreon, check out the main channel. I just uploaded a video a couple days ago. I'm on camera outside in full body view in HD. Isn't that crazy? Cat filmed for me. I posted some behind the scenes on Twitter from the filming of that, which is, check those out. Those were funny. Some bloopers. And I want to try to get maybe 2 videos out this month. I think I can do it. And gonna be some kind of different stuff for me that I'm pretty excited to try out. So look forward to that. It's been great. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, but please leave them in the form of a question, because I don't just want to read your thoughts out loud. Thank you so much. Bye.